Hey everyone, Relaxed Rebel 108 here, and today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of morals and ethics, those fundamental principles that guide our actions and shape our understanding of right and wrong. Debate is the lifeblood of philosophy, after all. We'll be exploring some of the most influential philosophical perspectives on ethics, from the happiness-maximizing utilitarianism to the duty-bound deontology and the virtue-focused ethics of Aristotle. We'll grapple with the complexities of ethical relativism, ponder the social contracts that bind us, and delve into the empathy-driven ethics of care. It's going to be a wild ride through millennia of philosophical thought, so buckle up and get ready to question everything you thought you knew about morality. And if you liked the video, or felt your curiosity stir, or just got something out of this, make sure to like and subscribe. I ain't even getting paid for this. Let's get started.
Let's kick things off with utilitarianism, a school of thought that emphasizes the consequences of our actions. Imagine you're a benevolent overlord with a magic wand that can make people happy. A utilitarian would tell you to wave that wand with reckless abandon, spreading joy and well-being wherever you go. The basic idea is this: when faced with a moral dilemma, a good utilitarian assesses the potential outcomes of each choice and opts for the one that maximizes overall happiness. Think of it like this: you've got one delicious cookie left, and you're torn between devouring it yourself or sharing it with your 5 friends. A utilitarian would argue that the happiness boost your friends receive from that tiny crumb of cookie goodness far outweighs your own solo cookie bliss. Now, utilitarianism isn't without its critics. Some argue that it's too simplistic, failing to account for the inherent value of individual rights or the nuances of justice. One of the most famous proponents of utilitarianism was John Stuart Mill, who believed that actions are right in proportion to their ability to promote happiness and wrong if they tend to produce the reverse. Utilitarianism has had a profound impact on fields like economics, law, and public policy, influencing everything from cost-benefit analysis to animal welfare legislation. So, the next time you're faced with a moral quandary, consider the potential consequences of your actions.
Now, let's shift gears from the consequence-obsessed utilitarians to the rule-following deontologists. For these folks, it's not about the outcome, but about the action itself. Immanuel Kant, the philosophical heavyweight of deontology, believed that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of their consequences. He argued that we have a moral duty to act in accordance with universal moral laws, which he called categorical imperatives. Kant's most famous categorical imperative is often paraphrased as act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. In other words, before you do something, ask yourself, would it be okay if everyone did this all the time? If the answer is no, then it's probably not the most ethical course of action. Deontology is all about sticking to your moral guns, even if it means facing some unpleasant outcomes. Think of it like this: you're a journalist who's sworn to protect your sources, even if it means going to jail. Of course, deontology has its share of criticisms too. Some argue that its rigid adherence to rules can lead to absurd or even harmful outcomes. Despite its challenges, deontology offers a valuable perspective on ethical decision-making.
So far, we've explored ethical theories that focus on either consequences or rules. But what about the character of the person making those decisions? That's where virtue ethics comes in. Picture a wise old sage embodying traits like honesty, courage, and compassion. That's the kind of person virtue ethics aspires to create. Aristotle, the OG virtue ethicist, believed that living a moral life is about cultivating these virtues through practice and habit. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" virtue ethics asks, "What kind of person should I be?" It's about developing a strong moral character that will guide our actions in all aspects of life. Think of it like this: you're trying to decide whether to cheat on a test. A virtue ethicist would encourage you to consider the virtues of honesty and integrity, reminding you that true success comes from within, not from a grade on a piece of paper. Virtue ethics emphasizes the importance of finding a balance between extremes. For example, courage lies between the vices of cowardice and recklessness. A courageous person is not fearless, but rather knows when to act boldly and when to exercise caution. One of the strengths of virtue ethics is that it recognizes the complexity of human experience and the importance of context in ethical decision-making. It reminds us that ethics is not just about following rules or calculating consequences, but about embodying virtues that allow us to live meaningful and fulfilling lives.
Chapter 4. Ethical Relativism. One culture's right is another's wrong. Hold on to your hats, folks, because things are about to get philosophically slippery. Ethical relativism throws a wrench into the idea of universal moral truths, suggesting that right and wrong are in the eye of the beholder, or more accurately, the culture or society. Imagine a world where pineapple on pizza is considered a culinary delight in one country and a punishable offense in another. That's ethical relativism in action, different strokes for different folks. This perspective argues that moral principles are not absolute, but are instead shaped by cultural norms, historical context, and individual beliefs. What's considered morally acceptable in one society may be deemed abhorrent in another. Think of it like this. In some cultures, eating beef is considered taboo, while in others, it's a staple food. An ethical relativist would argue that there's no right or wrong answer here. It simply comes down to cultural differences. Ethical relativism can be a tough pill to swallow because it challenges our deeply held belief that some things are just plain wrong, regardless of who you are or where you come from. It promotes tolerance and understanding between cultures, encouraging us to see the world through different lenses. It reminds us that our own moral beliefs are not etched in stone, but are products of our upbringing, our experiences, and the societies in which we live.
Chapter 5. Social Contract Theory. We're all just agreeing to get along. Let's step back from ethical relativism into social agreements. Imagine a group of people stranded on a deserted island. They need to establish ground rules, a social contract. That's the basic premise behind social contract theory. Individuals agree to live together, surrendering some freedoms for mutual benefits. Think of it like agreeing not to blast music at 3 a.m. for neighborly peace. Thomas Hobbes argued life without a social contract is chaotic. He believed a strong sovereign power is necessary to enforce rules. John Locke argued for natural rights to life, liberty, and property. Locke believed government should protect these rights.
Chapter 6. Ethics of Care, Compassion Rules. Let's move from the realm of abstract principles and social contracts to a more emotionally resonant approach to ethics, the ethics of care. Imagine a circle of interconnected individuals bound by empathy, compassion, and a deep sense of responsibility for one another. That's the heart of the ethics of care. This ethical framework, developed by feminist philosophers like Carol Gilligan and Nell Noddings, emphasizes the importance of relationships, interdependence, and the moral significance of caring for others. It challenges the traditional emphasis on abstract principles and individual rights, arguing that ethics should be grounded in our lived experiences of love, friendship, and community. Instead of asking, what is the right thing to do? The ethics of care asks, what would be the most caring response in this situation? It recognizes that our moral obligations arise not from abstract duties or universal principles, but from the concrete relationships we have with others. Think of it like this. You see a homeless person begging for money on the street. A deontologist might argue that you have a duty to help those in need. A utilitarian might calculate the potential benefits and drawbacks of giving money, but an ethicist of care would focus on the individual's suffering and the compassionate response that the situation demands. Chapter 7. Morality. It's complicated but worth thinking about. So, there you have it, a whirlwind tour through some of the most influential philosophical perspectives on morals and ethics. We've grappled with the complexities of utilitarianism, deontology, virtue ethics, ethical relativism, social contract theory, and the ethics of care. We've explored the strengths and weaknesses of each approach, recognizing that there's no easy answer to the question of how we should live our lives. As we've seen, morality is a messy, complex and often deeply personal endeavour. There's no magic formula or universal rulebook that can provide all the answers. But that doesn't mean we should throw up our hands in philosophical despair. Instead, by engaging with these different ethical perspectives, by challenging our assumptions, and by embracing the messiness of it all, we can develop a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And who knows, we might even become slightly better human beings along the way.